For centuries, we've been captivated by the idea of the blue rose. It's the symbol of mystery, of something you just can't quite get. But what if I told you that the secret behind this flower is that it represents the impossible? Because in nature, it is impossible. So, what is it about this one color that nature just can't seem to make?
Seriously, think about it. Have you ever been scrolling online or walking past a flower shop and seen a stunning, vibrant, perfectly blue rose and just thought, wow, nature is amazing? I know I have. But there's a secret behind that flower, and it's probably not what you're thinking.
And here it is, the big reveal. That flower you saw? It was an illusion. A true, naturally occurring blue rose has never, ever existed. The ones you see in shops, they're almost always white roses that have been dyed. Or they're the result of some pretty incredible science, born from our desire to create the impossible.
To really understand why, we've got to look deep. I mean, right down into the rose's DNA. There's a fundamental reason, a missing piece of the puzzle that just makes it impossible for nature to cook up a blue rose on its own.
Okay, so it all starts with something called pigments. The easiest way to think about them is like nature's paint. They're these little chemicals inside a flower's petals that create all the amazing colors we get to see, from those fiery reds to bright sunny yellows.
But here's the thing. Not all pigments are created equal. Roses, they are absolutely packed with a pigment called cyanidin. It's fantastic for making those classic reds and pinks we all love. But to get a true deep blue, a flower needs a completely different pigment. It's called delphinidin, and that's the exact chemical that gives flowers like violets their incredible color.
And this, right here, is the absolute deal breaker. Roses just don't have the genetic recipe to make delphinidin. It's not like it's a minor mistake in the code. The entire instruction manual for how to make blue is just gone. It's completely absent from their DNA. You could crossbreed roses for 1,000 years and you would never get a blue one because that basic building block just isn't there to begin with.
But wait, the story doesn't end there. You'd think, okay, missing gene, case closed. But even if, by some crazy miracle, a rose could produce that blue pigment, it would still face another massive problem. It turns out, having the right gene is only half the battle.
Yep, just when you've solved the genetic mystery, a chemical one pops up. The very environment inside the rose petal itself creates a whole new problem for the color blue.
This number. This is the culprit. Rose petals are naturally acidic. They have a pH of about 4.5. And that specific acidic environment, well, it's pretty much a disaster zone for the color blue.
So here's what happens. It's a simple chemical reaction. When you put that blue pigment, delphinidin, into this acidic setting, it just can't hold its true blue color. It physically changes, shifting into a reddish or purplish shade instead. So even if the rose had the right pigment, its own chemistry would ruin the effect. It's like trying to paint a blue picture on a canvas that automatically turns your paint purple.
And this really puts into perspective just how special the color blue is in the flower world. When you combine all these genetic and chemical roadblocks, it turns out that fewer than 10% of all flowering plants on Earth can naturally pull it off. Blue is one of nature's most exclusive clubs.
So nature said no. For very clear genetic and chemical reasons, a blue rose was just off the table. But if there's one thing you can say about us humans, it's that we don't always like taking no for an answer. When we hear impossible, we often hear challenge.
So, back in the 1990s, scientists in Japan and Australia began a quest that sounded like pure science fiction. Their plan was bold, to say the least. They would take the blue-making gene from a totally different flower, a petunia, and use genetic engineering to literally insert it into a rose. After more than a decade of hard work, in 2004, they had a breakthrough. They created the world's first genetically modified blue rose. And 5 years later, they released it to the public under the perfect name, Applause. So, they did it, right? They cracked the code. They overcame a genetic barrier that had stood for millions of years. But did they really achieve that impossible dream? What did the result of this incredible decades-long quest actually look like? Let's be clear about what the goal was. This wasn't just about making a bluish rose. The dream was to create a flower with that pure, vibrant blue you see in a summer sky or the deep ocean, a color that, until then, had only ever existed in stories and our imaginations.
But the reality, well, it was a little different. While it was an absolutely monumental scientific achievement, The applause rose isn't that vibrant blue people were dreaming of. In person, it's much more of a soft, delicate lavender, or maybe a unique, grayish mauve. It's beautiful for sure, but it's not truly blue.
So why didn't it work perfectly? Well, it all comes back to that pesky chemistry. Even with the brand new gene, scientists couldn't change the natural acidity of the rose petal. On top of that, it turns out roses are also missing other little helper molecules, things that other blue flowers use to protect and stabilize their color, to really make it pop.
And this brings us right back to the beginning. The science behind it all perfectly explains why the blue rose has been such a powerful symbol in our culture for so long. It stands for the unattainable, the mysterious, and the magical, precisely because for all of human history, it really was impossible. It represents a dream that's just beyond our grasp.
This whole journey really shows you the incredible limits of nature and the equally incredible ambition of science. And it leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. Should we keep pushing, keep trying to create that perfect blue rose? Or is there a special kind of beauty in leaving some things as nature's little mysteries, as impossible dreams?